I'm not in.
Yeah, I think that.
And there's San.
Are you there, Anne? Okay. So the things then that I've got on the agenda was basically just to look at again, and very quickly though, I think about the make sure that we kind of in the same on the same page for the structure of the companion, the article, and Janet's deep dives. Because I saw the comments and notes that you've made, Sylvia's as well. So just to check that we understand that in the same way. That question about all right. So if hello Anne, hi,
Hi.
how are you doing? You okay?
I'm okay. Yep, I'm okay.
Good. The question about the if we think that what we did with Elena around AI machine mentoring experience, if we think that really does shed light, which I think it does, on some of our fundamental questions about what is mentoring, what's the relationship between the mentor and mentee, what role does experience have, and all that kind of thing, to find the place to be able to capture that in some way. And then the main thing about who does what, then how can we get get a start on the writing, continue with the writing process, and then timelines, as I was saying, and a suggestion for a final collaborative output. Is there anything else that you think that's not covered by any of those four things?
No, I think that we need to decide on the structure and start saying collaborating with the writing. Of course, at the beginning, it's just chaos until we get started, and it's similar as when we prepared the webinar. At the beginning, well, we needed a bit of coming and going, but we need to get going. I mean, we need to start and do things so that we can revisit, revise.
Yeah, and just on that before Janet comes in, I think that's absolutely right, because I think it's actually in the doing, in the writing, that actually the structure emerges. In fact, and that that who does what emerges as well. So yes, I think getting in there and doing the writing, I think that's absolutely correct. Yeah, Janet, sorry, just chip in.
Really, what I did with respect to my article, I started with an abstract, and I referred to the model, the framework, the four C's, and why, and the methodology that we use somehow, and the kind of relationship. So the introduction is very important at the beginning. I don't know if you're this, or if you want to have it as an academic article or a descriptive article. I have no idea. So what you're planning, maybe you wrote some points, Sylvia, and you shared them last time with us, right, Sylvia?
I
So up till
shared
now,
them in
I
the
think
mail. In the mail.
exactly, that's right. I don't know, but because I'm used to. So would you like to start with an abstract at the beginning, introduction, which is a theoretical one?
So
What do you think?
we've got three things then that we're talking about, and perhaps let's just maybe talk about each one in turn. So we've got the companion. That's the guide that we think will help anybody who's got an interest in mentoring for whatever reason, will help them to understand from our research and our discussions and our experience what it is, how to do it, what models are out there, how it contrasts and compares with other kinds of learning, that kind of thing. And that's a very, I would say, non-academic in the sense that it's written with, with a regular non-academic audience in mind. So for that, there's no abstract or anything like that. There's we move through. There's an introduction. I'm suggesting we have a forward and an executive summary. That it's kind of formal to some extent. It's all gone black. It's all come back then.
I'll see if I can show you the document.
I have the documents up. Which one do you want? Mentoring article or mentoring companion?
The
Companion.
companion.
Okay, just give me a minute. Can I share?
Let's see.
I can share. Oh, sorry, it's not turned on.
The companion is there. Let's see, I'm going to share. Everybody can share. Yes.
Yeah.
The idea is that, I mean, we have a companion with questions. We talked about having questions, and then whoever wants to go to the different answers would just click on the question. We have to decide on the question, on what questions we're going to ask, for instance.
Yeah, that's right. So if you go right to the beginning of the document, because those questions that you were just showing there are pretty much what we have the answers to. And if you scroll down a little bit more,
yeah.
So we've got, the first kind of obvious question is what is mentoring? Mm-hmm. So as you can see from what Sylvia was saying, then that the reader then doesn't just read, but that we're asking certain kinds of reflective questions as we go through, so that the reader can go, oh, right, okay, then. So yeah, so let me just think about this for a fact. As an example, have I had a mentor, and what kind of things did they do? So for each kind of, if you like, point or answer to the questions that we've got, then we're inviting the reader to stop, to pause, to think. So that's the kind of approach, if you like, that we think would be quite useful. So a guide. And then in terms of that structure, then, and again, Sylvia's questions are very much part of this, that we thought we've got two basic sections. Right? The first section is to do with thinking about mentoring, so something to do with a reflection on the theory, a reflection on the practice of mentoring, what other people say about it, so thinking about it rather than doing it. And then the second section, it's the doing bit, the mentoring each other phase. And the idea there, I think, really is that, okay, so we've had all of this discussion, then we went ahead and did some mentoring ourselves, and how has that changed then what we think mentoring is, or how it's different from other kinds of learning? So to inform the discussion by our own experience of it, as well as commenting on that experience.
So we would need the questions for the doing the mentoring, because I suppose, I don't know if you all agree, these are the questions that we asked ourselves when thinking about mentoring. I don't know. This is what I need. I need others to give feedback on this.
Yeah. So those are the questions for both sections for me.
For both?
So that, yeah. So that we thought about the answer to the question, what is mentoring? And then we did some mentoring, and it prompted us to think perhaps differently, to extend our answer to the question. Do you see what I mean?
So we can have just the question, and then two sections in the answer. One with a little thing that shows what we think, and the other is hands when we actually did something, and like two parts of the in the answer, rather than have two sections, one about thinking and one about doing, if the questions are the same.
We could do, yes. Yeah, we could do. We could try that. Yes, why not?
I had thought of a structure for each section, possible structure of what is mentoring, for example. Our working definition, what we decided, we thought that mentoring is, why we agreed on this definition. Then I thought, well, always a reflection for the reader so that the reader takes something away, I mean, some thinking. So probably before this, we could have something related to the doing. I don't know. It's like a structure within the section. That's what I thought we had to agree on.
We
Can
could
I
do,
say
yeah.
something in relation to the questions that you had above, Sylvia? That probably questions, I think it's 7, 8, and 9 refer more to the doing about mentoring than thinking. The one of the maybe 7 could be in any of the two sections, but the challenges that were encountered and what you learned about mentoring by mentoring others could probably refer to the doing the mentoring.
Okay, so we can use do, what challenges could we encounter, and then we have some of the thinking and some of the doing in the answer.
Right, right.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah, I noticed that all the questions, scroll up, please, Sylvia, that all of them are related to mentors, and nothing is mentioned about mentees. This is very important. This is first. Second, exactly. With respect to the questions themselves, exactly. Because we're talking about mentoring, but it's very important to really to look at mentoring from the perspective of the mentees. Really, I haven't had the opportunity to be a mentee, only once with Anne and once with Graham, and 2 times with Rabia. No, once with Rabia, Rabia EA. So I just, so I don't know, I can't express how I felt, but it was a little bit different from Anne, Graham, and Rabia. So this is why, I don't know. So we have to include questions related to mentees. And I think Sylvia Lupi and Sylvia R really had the opportunity to be mentees and to be mentors, right, Sylvia?
Not me, not me.
I was.
I was not a mentee.
Exactly. So this is very important, I think. What do you think?
Well, what would be the question, Janet? What kind of
Okay. So do, for examples, do they agree on, since you're mentioning frameworks or models, do they agree on the framework? With respect to John and me, we didn't. And all of a sudden, while I was writing my article, I found out that we followed the 4 C's. And I explained why in my article. But we didn't agree on that. So the question, since do mentors, so you have to say, do mentors and mentees, for example, agree on on a certain model or framework before they start the mentoring itself? Or this is one of the questions. Now, what does a mentor actually do? This is very important because also John was very helpful. I didn't plan anything. John helped me a lot. Why? Because he told me that let's discuss this, Janet, next time. At the beginning, I started, yes, with the recordings and something like this, but later he was very helpful, has been very helpful. What about discussing these questions, Janet? So he knows what he wants. So the mentee is very important, not only the mentors. And this is what does a mentor actually do. So maybe we have to include the mentee here in this question, actually do. Because in
So
the plan itself, this is from my own experience, and this is what I mentioned in my article. Sorry, John. Yes, sorry for
so
interrupting.
maybe the question in there, this, we're looking at generic questions that will help the reader to understand more about mentoring, the mentoring process. So it could be, what is the relationship between the mentor and the mentee?
Yes, and I explained this in my article about the relationship. It was very important there. It is a total it is a section about the relationship. Because the way we build this relationship is very important. Exactly. This is, yeah.
Yeah. So that building the relationship, I mean, how to do that, that's clearly part of a guide, but it will probably come out more strongly, won't it, in these more in-depth, detailed descriptions of that mentoring experience that we had. What I would say is that as a starting point, that you've written that we've kind of got we've sort of started at a slightly different place, really, because we've got the first bit of the at the beginning, the first bit of the companion that sort of captures our discussion so far, the discussion that we had as a group. So I think we've kind of got a lot of the answers to these questions already, really, and it's just sort of expanding on them and putting in reflective questions and stuff.
And the doing.
Yeah, I mean, we can try. Let's do what Sylvia suggests then, and try.
Sorry, John.
Sorry.
I think I wanted to say that what you suggested at the beginning reflects to my mind, it better reflects the chronology of
It does.
of the Howtomenta group or community of practice worked, in the sense that first we started thinking about what mentoring is, and probably this is the path that a newcomer to mentoring might follow. First, get to know what is this, and then okay, I'll try it out. So we did the mentoring, and then what did we learn about mentoring by doing it? So it's like going back. So I think that your original structure is a better reflection of how we developed this Howtomenta community. But rather than having the thinking and the doing in a more parallel fashion, but that's a question of preference. I think that I just wanted to say that the original structure, I think, is a better reflection. And as you said, the thinking part, there's a lot of the thinking answers to the questions Sylvia presented in the internal structures of the sections that are already there in the companion. Probably the doing is the part that requires a little bit more craftsmanship. But I don't know. I don't know what you think, but I thought that going back to the original structure was clear.
I agree. I mean, it's like when somebody makes a, Sylvia, it's a really good suggestion. It really is about the idea of they're trying to answer these questions just in one section that takes into account the thinking, that takes into account the doing. And when you suggested it, I thought, oh yeah, maybe that would be a good way of doing things. But I think I think that the structure that we've got, thinking, doing, for the reasons that Sylvia's just explained, I think will actually make more sense. And it's
Okay.
not just reflecting our chronology, but actually reflecting probably how people approach things
So
in general.
who's going
You
to
know,
write the questions for the doing? And so let's get down to work, because
I mean, we could have the same set of questions as
Exactly.
you said. I mean, the internal structure, like having. Let me see. I know. Can you share again,
Yes.
Sylvia? The one in the boxes, the sections that you had in the boxes with the reflection questions. That's great. So, so you could have.
I keep on sharing. Wait.
So a very big section like the thinking about mentoring and the what is mentoring and the there what we thought what we how we define mentoring, how we came to this definition, which will also be reflecting the way a community of practice worked, and then questions to think about for the reader. That's great. And then we go on with the thinking, as you said, how mentoring is different from other forms of support, what we originally thought about this, and then the doing thing, no, how we did thing. And then we go back and say, okay, how did this challenge our views on our working definition, forms of learning, etc. So we have to have this first, because then we talk about how we peer mentored each other, and then okay, so what we learned, what did we learn about how right were we at the when we did the thinking, or what conclusions did how did the experience enlighten us? I mean, what did the experience do for us?
That's exactly how I see it. Yeah. Okay then. So if we, we've got Janet's questions to come back to about this sort of, what's academic, non-academic kind of thing. And we'll come back to the article in a second. So Sylvia R is saying, all right, well, let's kind of get on and do it then. So let's just stick with the companion for a second then. So when I was thinking about how we might approach the writing bit, then I thought to myself, well, what bits of this would I personally like to write? Would I be interested in doing? And I was thinking about what we did for the webinar, for example, and we had sections that we took there, and I think maybe we could perhaps follow the same thing, so that Nelson's not with us.
Oh, but
I'd be very happy.
I asked him, and he's very willing to be with us. Yes.
Okay then. So, in the webinar, for example, we asked Nelson put himself forward. He wanted to look back at the definition then. So maybe that's a section that we ask him to look at. Sylvia's and Elizabeth, you did the work, didn't you, on the skills and the competence frameworks, that kind of thing.
Yes. What does a mentor actually do? I mean, yeah, the skills. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did something on the models and frameworks and stuff.
Yes.
And I think I'm right in remembering that Janet and yourself, Sylvia, you did something on research, didn't you? You did say, what does the literature say about mentoring? Isn't that right, originally?
Oh, originally, but we can.
I think Janet talked about challenges. You're on mute, Janet.
Janet was on challenges.
No,
That's right, wasn't it? Or maybe it was
we can't hear you, Janet.
Challenges.
Yes, you worked on challenges, but she's talking. Janet, we cannot hear you.
Hear me now? Sorry.
Now, yes.
Okay. Uh, Desi and I prepared the document about the references, so you can find it there. I uploaded it. It's in the, and no, I talked about the challenges in the webinar,
That's
but
right.
I didn't prepare a document. The only document that I prepared was with Desi, and it was about different references, about I think 5 pages. So a reference with a description. Yeah, it's there. I uploaded it.
Okay. And I mean, Sylvia didn't you put in a lot in the bit of the earlier bit of the companion,
In
didn't
the
you? About
companion, yes, in the companion there was a lot. Because Anne and Sylvia, we worked on, can't remember which parts, and we worked. Yes, we had. Yeah, I mean now it's a question of now that if we have a structure and we know we agree with the structure, then we can go back to the companion, to the webinar, and start filling in the sections, the answers to the questions. But the fact is, I wanted to agree with, all right, what are we going to include within the sections, within the answers of the questions? This is just a suggestion. I mean, this is not the last word. So
yeah. So if you take one of the sections then about what is mentoring, then so that would include, for example, our kind of working definition that we had in the webinar, but it would also include something else that we talked about, which was this sort of prototypical definition, if you like, of mentoring. That we, what features and what characteristics does mentoring have? So all of that, we've got a lot of that in the first section, in the early pages of the companion. So for me anyway, it's just a question of kind of expanding that, writing that out in a bit more detail, thinking about it a bit more, putting in some reflective questions, all of that kind of thing, looking at some other general definitions,
I felt that it is, I mean, they come with a question. We share what we have learned after working in the community. And then we also give them some time to reflect upon their own experiences. That's why I thought that reflection for the reader was important. I mean, we don't need
absolutely.
to write these, we don't need to say our working definition is just, we can start by mentoring is a professional learning relationship. I mean, this is just agreeing on what to include in each answer to the questions.
Yeah, so it's going to depend on each section, isn't it? What to include.
Yeah.
Obviously a section on looking at a definition of mentoring will include different kinds of things to a section on what does the literature say about mentoring.
Yeah, but at least we know that we start from a definition or an answer that is our answer, and then we expand and we support that with our own experience. Then we have them reflect on their own experience with reference to our, and I think that there should always be a final word, right? Like something that they take away from what we have said. If we all agree, we or not.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, it will depend on what the section is. For example, I don't think there is a definition of mentoring that anybody could take away and say this is it. So it's, for that particular section, for me, what's important is getting people to look at different kinds of definitions, different ways of viewing what mentoring is, and to ask them the reflective questions. In the webinar, for example, I think it was perhaps useful, but not correct to say this is a definite, this is what mentoring is. Because clearly, you know, it's extraordinarily difficult to define. Anyway, my point is that, you know, what the content of each section within the two main sections, I don't think we need to have a standard way of arranging the information. I think it just reflects, you know, what the nature is of that structure. So I think it's in the writing that all of this will come out. So if that's okay, and do tell me if it's not, because I sometimes feel I get stuck on particular ways of doing things. If it's okay just to pick up on our responsibilities for the webinar and write sections in line with that, then I think that will work, won't it?
Okay, we can do that.
So I'd be very, I will be, in answering the question, what would I personally be interested in writing? I'd be interested in doing forward, doing the executive summary, and doing the bit about models and frameworks and approaches. Yeah. So my question is not really, do mentors need models or frameworks? My question is, what models and frameworks are out there? What useful things can we take from those models and frameworks? So I don't know the answer. I don't know what the question is necessarily, but it will come to me as I start writing. I've got an idea of what the question is, but I don't actually know if that's the question I think is the most useful to answer. You know, it's the same with number 6, isn't it? What skills does a mentor need? We think that's particularly the question, don't we? But the question might be, how useful are, you know, mentor competence frameworks? You know, maybe that's what will emerge from the writing process. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's why we need these meetings, and
That's right.
because unless we talk about these things, I am more of a structured kind of teacher. That's why I need to, because I believe that in this case, this is a different, it's a typical type of genre that needs a certain structure, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And I thought it might be useful to agree at least the basic structure of this genre. Say the frequently asked questions. But well, then once we've got a few sections, we can uncover what is hidden. Maybe there is something that we can, I don't know, discover.
I think so, and I think that's in the nature of collaborative learning, isn't it? That, you know, that we come to a meeting, for example, of the community of practice, and we've got some questions in our head that we think are really good ones to, and then somebody says something different, and you think, oh, actually, you know, yeah, that's more important, or that let's focus on that kind of thing. Well, I think it's the same when you're writing as well. That as you go through, you think, yeah, it's not really about that, is it? It's about something else. So, and I suppose the danger of having it overly structured. I mean, I'm the same, Sylvia. I mean, really, but I recognize that there's a bit of a danger in that you're trying to fit stuff into some kind of format and structure, which actually turns out not to be particularly helpful.
I wonder, sorry to interrupt, but I wonder if it would be useful if people wrote up their experiences in case study format, both the role as the mentor and then as the mentee. And then I mean I had very limited experiences as a mentee. I was with Graham about the LMS about using the AI stuff. Janet was together with me with Ismail, and we did ACT, and it was a really interesting experience because ours was so completely different. Whereas so we sort of just talked about, we decided we were doing CCC for the 4Cs, but that wasn't where we started from. And then he wanted something on marking, and so I went and I actually wrote a text for him to mark. And then we just kind of stopped because he was busy, I was busy, but I think he got what he needed.
Yeah.
What do you think? So I actually think, actually, this is going to sound like, I think that we need to start from our experiences, and it may not just be our experiences here. It may also be experiences in other formats where, where we've been mentors or mentees or whatever. I don't know. I just think that our case studies would be a good starting point, and then all the other discussions go around the case studies. That's my 2 cents worth of it.
Yeah, no, we agree with that. And when we met last week, that's
Oh,
one
okay.
of the things. Yeah, no, I didn't mean that. It's
I was
negative.
sorry, I couldn't come last week. It was Eid. It was just, I just couldn't come last week.
And the case studies, yeah, absolutely, we're going to do that, definitely. So this what we've called, well, what I've called Janet's deep dives. So looking at how explaining, describing, drawing from those those individual mentoring mentee experiences. We'll definitely have those. And really, I think that if especially in relation to section 2 of the companion, if it turns out actually that that will help by beginning with a reflection on your experience, if that will help to write some of the sections on thinking, even though chronologically not accurate, not reflective of what actually happened, then so be it. What we trying to get to with the companion is a guide, is helping people and to be useful. So really matters so much how we get there. But in terms of the structure of what it would look like in the companion, I think what we've agreed is that we follow the chronology of our community practice, is we do the thinking about mentoring and then the doing about mentoring. But that's not to stop, of course, thinking about the doing bit of mentoring first. If why not?
Yeah. Okay.
The electrician is coming, says Rabia. So
No,
it's about to be plunged into darkness.
Elizabeth.
No. Elizabeth said that.
Oh,
I
Elizabeth,
said same to Anne when she was saying she couldn't join last week because of Eid. So I couldn't join because of that also. So hi everyone. Hello. Good to see you all again. It's been so long.
Hi, Rabia. How are you?
Hi.
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. Great. And
Okay then.
ask Anne what she suggests for the case study. I mean, what kind of, I mean, would you have questions? Would you have
I don't know. I think I would probably start chronologically. This is the case study. These were the objectives, and this is how it evolved. And I think that's this I think is how I would approach it. And then I'd probably do see if Ismail would want to, and Janet would want to work together on it, because they had different experiences than what I had as the mentor. I tried to meet their experiences, and we were very, Sylvia, we were very, very less structured than you. We were kind of like, let's go with the flow sort of thing, rather than having these really structured questions. And I think that actually, I would just start with the description of what we did, and then how people felt afterwards. And it just kind of quit. It stopped basically because people were busy, and also because of the Ramadan, and also because of the Eid festival and that kind of stuff. So, and consult both Janet and Ismail on it, and see, and just kind of go back to our notes and what we used, and then they can reflect on how it assisted them. So whether Janet found our marking exercise, I wrote I wrote an act answer. I sat down and Janet, I wrote it in 5 minutes. I sat down and I wrote something in 5 minutes and then I made them mark it. It met just barely. Just barely.
So you would
But that was
have a description. You would have a description, and then each part or each moment of this description, you may have an analysis.
Something like that. Something like that. I think I would start with the description and then probably try to bring things together, but how it evolved. I think that as a case study, and then once we've got our case studies, then we can do the different parts that we've got in the mentor, in the mentoring companions, and then we can have something to talk about. You could put the case studies either as an appendix or at the beginning or whatever. Appendixes probably work quite well in something like this because, yeah, I don't know, but that would be a different decision, a different discussion. I think I would personally want to start with my experiences, and then consult Janet and Ismail on it.
Okay, then.
That's
Why don't we do that then? And let's be guided then by what how your case study emerges then.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think, and coming back to this sort of the overly structured nature of people like myself and Sylvia. I think one thing that we should do though and try and be consistent on is what we've been saying all along is to do with, okay then, so you've described this experience in your case studies, yeah? At the end of that, and it's a little bit like takeaways, isn't it? It's a little bit like summaries or conclusions or something.
Yeah.
At the end of that, I now think mentoring is more like X than Y. I now think that this model that we experimented with, I don't think it was actually particularly. Do you know what I mean? That there is something at the end which is more standard, which is more kind of summary, conclusive, that allows the reader to challenge, as we were saying before, what they think or what they thought mentoring was, what they thought the skills were that you need, what they thought the nature of the relationship was between mentor and mentee. So I think that we can get to that once we've seen what Anne and Jan, how they've approached. I think that would be quite good. Okay then. So if and having them as an appendix, I think is possibly a really really good idea, isn't it? I think, and that might with the writing of section 2 of the companion. I mean, maybe that is section 2 of the companion. I don't know. Maybe that.
But I just think that we need to start with our experiences and base our discussions on our experiences, which I thought was which is what we were doing when we went off and talked about it, and then we mentored, and with different levels of success, I think. So yeah.
Well, I think what we've said is that we'll in terms of actually the how it fits in 2 dimensions is that irrespective of how we start thinking about it, but how it fits in terms of the companion is that we do the thinking bit first. That was our discussion. These are the conclusions that we came to, because it's not like we approached it with no mentoring experience. We had some mentoring experience that we brought to the table anyway. But I think that would make more sense. And I think it, as we were saying, I think it probably reflects how people don't just do stuff, do they? People think about and look into stuff first. I don't know, maybe, maybe they do. Donald Trump, for example, I'm sure he just does things.
Rabia, you had put up your hand.
Yes, I wanted to say that it would be nice to add the case studies, because that proves that there is not one fixed way to do that. And we started with something and we ended with something. We started with one framework, but then we ended with another. With John, we started and it's very structured. He prepares everything, and I kind of sometimes try hard, sometimes I can't because of Ramadan and all that. But we did manage. We did manage. So that was the totally different approach. But with Shirin, because she was working as a QA, it was a working model. Wherever she needed my support, I gave her. And, so that kind of mentoring was totally different. So maybe that would help the reader also to know, like we have case studies in course materials, they see and they learn from that. So maybe this could be not for us to tell, like key takeaways, maybe people can read and think about. We can give guiding questions in this companion for them to think about, what do you think about this, what could have happened if it had been like this or something like that. So just
Yeah.
wanted to endorse that.
Mm.
And also, you know, that we're not, even though I keep talking about things being two-dimensional, they're not, are they? Not really. Because if at the beginning of the companion, we say, if you're the kind of person that would like to read a little bit about our experiences first, click on, you know, go to the, so that we're not, you know, people can do whatever they want to do. All
What
right
I
then.
feel is that each mentoring experience is completely different from the other, because
Yeah.
the mentee is a different person, because the mentee
Mm-hmm.
has a different need. So we mentors need to develop these flexibility, this capacity to open their minds and adapt and follow the mentee, not that the mentee follows you. But so that's why all the case studies will be different, and they will show that the mentor, being a mentor, implies having this open, capacity to hear, to listen, to adapt, and that is what matters. What why I'm so concerned about AI, John. That is why I feel that there is something there. I don't quite agree.
Sure. No.
Sorry, Sylvia. Yeah, sorry for the interruption. Are you talking about AI as a mentor, right? This is what we talked about last time, right? Exactly. But I think, as I told you before, it depends on the prompts that you're writing. So sometimes, if you're using the appropriate prompts, just like maybe if sorry, if John were AI, but he's not AI, but he might give me certain questions that might somehow help me or guide me. So it depends on the prompts that you might be using. What do you think, Sylvia? Again, you're against this. Yeah, just
I
like
mean,
last time.
I have been doing a lot of research on the effect of AI feedback and all that, and I mean, I'm very curious about this. What I feel is the mentoring, the human part. I cannot understand how to replace the human part.
Well, the thing is, I mean, we keep having discussions about AI, don't we? About not how it might fit into our companion or article, but about what it is, whether it's good or not. So the sort of the jury is out, isn't it? I mean, that's aren't we just sort of presenting the idea of machine mentoring as something that's very interesting? You know, in the same way that humans, you know, we might say that, you know, human mentoring can be dangerous because you get some nutter who decides to be a mentor and who's trying to ram their opinion down your throat all the time. You know, so there's caveats and cautions. I think what we're trying to do though is that I think if we don't include it, then I think that'll be a bit
Well,
weird, isn't it?
it has to be there.
Yeah. So I think, you know, need to find a way of getting it in there, and you know, the discussion that we're having about it is a very interesting one, isn't it? It's about relationships, and which is at the core of our definition of mentoring. Anyway, so I think we've got this sort of got in terms of the companion, who's going to do what the sections are. Got some ideas now about the case studies will be driven by what Anne and Janet come up with. So that leaves us with the article to think about and talk about. So as I said, I've forgotten my notes, but what you wrote, Sylvia, in that is absolutely spot on. I thought for me that's really exactly it. So,
Well, it's the summary of what you said.
well, that must explain it then in that case.
Mhm.
You mentioned these three components, a review of the knowledge base, how mentoring compares to other forms of learning, and how to do mentoring better, the practical dimension. This is what you mentioned. And I remember discussing this for some time, interweaving the experience that throughout the article, we should make
Well, we have this.
our experience suggests, we found, so that whatever emerged from our experience is clearly stated. And we also mentioned the length of the article, not overly detailed, and the aim. Well, you mentioned broad audience, so we need to bear this in mind, not just the teacher educators we generally refer to, wider readership. And then there is a possible structure, but I mean, again, I just throw things so that you destroy them.
So when I said it's spot on, I was really meaning what you've got here, what this next bit is coming up. So I looked at that and I put what I thought would be an introduction to the article. So I've dived in and thought, well, if it was just me, which it isn't obviously, then bearing in mind what we talked about in terms of the structure and what the introduction might contain, these are the points that I would like to make at the beginning, and this is the
Okay.
tone that I'd like to strike with the writing. So
Semi-formal.
just if I was doing this on my own kind of thing. So the question then, it seems to me, is that do we want to have that tone? Do we think that some of the, this very sort of is a very kind of broad introduction, because I'm particularly interested in how mentoring compares to other kinds of learning. I'm particularly interested in the people using mentoring to mean different things, and I've got particular interest in being part of this community of practice, and I want to be a better mentor. I want to know more about it, and I want to kind of mitigate against what for me is quite a bad thing. People using the word mentor to mean trainer, for example. I'm particularly interested in those sorts of things. Now they're not, that's just me, and they're not the same. So that's maybe something that that if you have a think about how I've started this article in relation to what we said the structure might be, and what within that structure the points might cover, then you may have lots of different things to say about it, or you'd like a different way of starting.
So there are two things. One is companion and one is this article.
That's right.
Okay.
But here you mentioned a lot of questions, John, right? Please scroll up, please, Sylvia. So, yeah, in the introduction. So you started with questions. Usually, I don't know, it's better, maybe because I'm referring to an academic article. So we start with something theoretical in general about mentoring, and then we go down to our questions.
I have shared this document with you so that you can read it from your own.
There are a lot of questions, John.
There are.
Hmm. So, do you think these are excellent questions, but do you think we should they should be in the introduction? I don't know.
Well, for me, they should, because
Mm.
those are the questions
That
that,
they will be answered later?
yeah,
Okay.
and that, it's that's what I was saying. It's very broad. So, it's about, for me, the key thing, which is about learning, about how do we learn. You know, I know how to train people. I know how to facilitate groups. I kind of know something about learning on my own, but I don't know much about mentoring. But I recognize it as being something which is different and special and distinct from other kinds of learning. So for me, it's particularly interesting to ask questions about the nature of learning and what exactly is it that mentoring brings to the range of ways that you can learn stuff.
Oh, fine.
So, and I'm not stuck on a particular kind of format either for articles because, well, I don't really care. I don't really care if that's generally what academic articles are about, or I don't see any reason why we should follow an artificially constructed format myself. You know, the people who are in charge of accepting submissions, like yourself, might turn around and say, "Well, no, actually, this isn't what we do. This isn't how uh, things should be." Well, that's uh, you know, clearly it's their magazine, but that for me anyway. That's so. What I was going to suggest was that you have a look at that and you think, actually, no, we want a different kind of introduction. What we need to do is have strike a different tone, or and in which case, what should be in the introduction? What kind of tone, do you think we should have? So it's like a little bit like the approach with the case studies, in that in dive in, and then from that diving in, we'll have a look, and over time we'll come to some sort of conclusion about what some kind of look and feel about the article, some kind of look and feel about the case studies. You see what I mean?
I particularly like the tone. I feel I feel like involved in the, as if you were talking, right? Rather than writing something very special for me, but like having a conversation. I might find it difficult to simulate, to replicate the tone, but I will make an effort. Whichever section I have to write, I will make the effort to keep the tone.
Or probably what might, if I might make a suggestion, is if you write, if we're going to agree, aren't we, who's going to do what for the article now? So maybe if you just dive in, irrespective of what I've written, and say, this is what this is what I think is particularly important, and this is what the tone that I'd like to strike, and then we'll kind of keep going at it until we get to something that's obviously going to be, internally coherent, strike the same kind of tone. But we'll do that, like we said, through the doing bit, through the seeing and talking and discussing, rather than just, saying, okay, so, I'm going to set the tone, Sylvia's going to set the tone, that we look at what tones we might strike, if that's not too convoluted a way.
Okay. Yeah, probably I would like to talk about the process, starting the process, mentoring, interaction, I mean, the
Mm.
role of reflection, what makes that may probably I might be more interested in talking about how we mentor well. Maybe I volunteer, but it doesn't mean that I am the only one writing that section. We can all contribute. Yes.
I actually think that with the starting with the questions, because that was what we started with, it also helps us as we're going through that we may be thinking about how we're answering these questions. So we can use them as the question, because like it's not going to be an academic article per se, but it's going to be something that I often is called friendly formal. So it's formal, but yet it's not difficult to read. So it's not aimed at academics. It's aimed at a different type of audience. But I think the questions are a starting point for our own writing. But I think everybody should write up their own case studies, and then we decide from there, because we have to write up our own case study because we're the only ones that can write it. But and then we start from there. That's my feeling, is that we all do our own case studies, and then you can, if you've got to know what you want to write, that's cool. You may want to allocate or nominate or whatever for different case studies. I think that we all should be writing our own case studies. That's the first point. Yeah.
And I think it would be very interesting to have the different voices there, because you write probably reflecting who you are and reflecting reflecting how the relationship went and how your experience went.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
it would actually be very kind of patchwork, and I think that would be better for the article, because then the readers can feel more or less identified with one or the other. So I think that would be, our own voices, and this is what mentoring is about anyway. It's your own voice in the relationship. So yeah.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I think so. And then in the main article, it may be more standardized, but the actual case studies would be quite
personalized.
Quite personalized. That's a really good word. Thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
I lost it. Yeah.
No, but yeah, John, I think we need someone to lead us. Someone to tell us that, Sylvia, you have to write this, Sylvia, you have to write this, Janet, you have to write this. Otherwise,
why don't we volunteer, Janet? I mean, I volunteered to do the structure, but
Sylvia, exactly. You're doing a lot of things.
I didn't feel obliged. I just volunteered.
Yeah.
What we need
Sometimes,
to do is to volunteer.
But because we're writing an article, I mean, it's a collaborative article. So all of us are going to write something. So we need someone to review and to tell us, please, Rabia, you have to do this, or you have to write. So we need someone to review, to read what we're
Kind
writing.
of an editor also.
Exactly.
Like an editor also.
A reviewer or an editor. I don't know. We need that. I think John is the suitable person for that. I think since he started the introduction, and his tone is excellent. I know now, I understand what tone is intending to. So with respect to me, I need someone to tell me,
Okay.
Janet, this is your section.
All right, well, don't blame me
Here
if it
you
all
have
goes
to
wrong.
write.
Okay, so a little bit like the webinar to some extent, yeah, that we kind of it is about volunteering, but it's about kind of guided volunteering, I think. Really.
If such a thing exists, yeah.
I like that.
I think we coined a phrase when I was working at the British Council, me, Ellen, and Shirin, which was called something like guided self-nomination or something like that. Would you be interested in doing? Yeah. Okay. So
we suggest something as being compulsory.
Okay. Do you want to put the article back on the structure back on the screen then, and we'll try and do what Janet suggested then, a la webinar, and to reiterate the point that what we're trying to do with this article is we're trying to capture not just our experience of mentoring each other, not just those case studies, but the experience of the community of practice. So the thinking and the doing and the collaborative learning. So we've got a beginning first kind of stab, let's say, at doing the introduction. So like with the companion, we've got, we need to include what other people think, what the literature says. So who would like, right, to write, I don't know, it's probably going to be like 500 words on, in a very, it's quite a tough thing in that to look across.
I volunteered, Nelson.
Yeah.
It's not here.
Can I volunteer yourself though instead of Nelson? If I'm really going to step into what Janet said about sort of be a little bit more directive, I think you are ideally suited
Me?
to this.
I thought so.
Yeah,
Yes.
to this particular section.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Okay, models and frameworks. I can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Our reading in the field. I don't know what that is. What's that?
It's from the experience.
Yes, that would be like rounding up this section. Say, from all we read, and we noticed, like what the consensus that we reached. It was like finishing the section. These are the models, but in our experience, in fact, we used a bit of everything personally with Sylvia. I mean, we didn't stick to a model. We just got a bit of this one and that one, and then we adapted whatever to Jerusa and to Graham. It wasn't that we just stuck to one. So probably
It's pretty much what Anne was saying a while ago, that you start with an idea, but then you just get carried away by what the mentee needs, and
yeah. So for me, that comes a little bit later on. So we haven't quite finished yet with the thinking, it seems to me, because we haven't got anything. Where's about skills that mentors need. How do you so if we'll tell you what we could do. This is all right. Then me and Sylvia we could do this first bit, which is something to do with the introduction, something to do with what the research says, something to do with models and frameworks, something to do with competence that teachers, that mentors need to have, something around other forms of learning, that kind of thing. And then maybe Sylvia L, based on what Janet and Anne, if you have a look at this. Okay then, so like I keep saying about this sort of chronology about thinking. So we started doing it, and then to talk about that in a bit more detail.
Okay. Stick our names there.
So where shall I place your names? Here?
So if I understood what you meant by our reading in the field.
Yes, it has to
mean
do with
something.
What we learned.
What was learned, yeah. So what I'm saying is that we've got in the article, like the companion, you've got a section on what we learned by thinking and talking about it. And then we've got another bit that says what we learned by doing it. So what I think is that Sylvia, Anne and Janet, based on Anne and Janet's case study, what emerges from that you take, you look at our reading of the field in the,
exactly,
what we
but
learned from the experience.
Can I suggest something, John?
Yeah.
All of us, we first write our case
Okay.
studies, and we add it to the companion. And from that, whatever is suitable for any section, we can take extracts and put them there. So instead of everybody writing, okay, for this, my reading is this, maybe everybody writes their case study and whatever is applicable, just take that portion and add it there.
Yes. I think what might be preferable, we do need to do that, obviously, but I think what might be preferable is that we see what emerges from what from what Anne and Janet.
Okay.
I can write about mentoring versus training and versus facilitation and coaching. What I cannot write is about the experience because I have not been involved in any experience in the community of practice. But I can work on points 3.1 and 3.2.
Okay.
I think at some point we need to explain how we got started with the peer mentoring, in the sense that there was this. I mean, we had this. We had each of us say what we thought we needed to be mentored in, and what we thought we could offer mentoring in. At some point before the experiences or somewhere, I mean, the setup for the experience probably needs to be written.
I can work with Liz on the same topics and I can add the experience bit, Liz, if you would like.
All right, we can do it together. Good.
Great.
Okay then. So in summary, then, me and Sylvia will take care of this the first bit, and by the first bit I mean the first stage that we went through as a community of practice, the kinds of questions that we asked, the kind of answers that we got, that kind of thing. Not in an not a huge expose of it, and that the main bit then, and I think this is emerging from what people are saying, the main bit of the article, it sounds like that we prefer to have that focus on what we learned from the experience. So to some extent, the thinking bit is just kind of an introduction, maybe, to the practice bit. Is that is that what you're saying? Is that what we're saying now?
I think so.
Okay. And that's got to, and clearly, as you're just saying, and Sylvia L's going to set that up, if you like, sort of set up the mentoring each other phase. Yeah. And then we drop in our conclusion. And then that might be quite nice. So then we come up at the end of the article, then we can do what we're trying to do with the companion to some extent. We can say, all right, so this is what we thought, this is what we learned from the experience, and the synthesis of those things, it's given us this kind of definition, it's given us this different sort of understanding.
Maybe if each of us, when writing our experiences, can add that question at the end. Okay, how do we learn from this? And then maybe we could have a sort of, find the similarities and find the threads in there.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay then.
John?
So I think we've got more or less sort of the next steps mapped out in terms of writing for both the companion, the article, and the case studies. I think we've got that. In terms of a time frame, a little bit like Janet said, can you just tell us what tell us what to do? Somebody told me once, so I've been working with for a long time. She said, "There's no point just asking me to do something. You need to ask me to do something by the 4th of April. Otherwise, I won't do it." I said, "Really?" Okay, so I said, "All right, well, can you do this by the 4th of April?" All right. So with that in mind, then, I suggest a 3-month time frame is both reasonable and sufficiently motivating to knock off these three things. Okay, just have to think about that for a minute. So we're now where are we? Beginning of April. So April, June, July.
May.
Yeah, what about
April,
that
May.
whole month of May? Let's forget that. That's right. God, I don't
We
even.
can't hear you, Anne.
The
April,
end of June,
May,
April, May, June,
June.
end of June, end of June.
I'll start forgetting the days of the week soon. Start with the months.
That's what happens when you stop working full time.
Yeah, your brain gets just addled.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound reasonable then?
Yes, yes. When you scroll down at the end, it made me think that this is kind of an action research. Like we planned something, we did something, and now we're collecting data. So we need to have some quantitative data also. Maybe a survey that each of us fills. There was a question that is mentoring like this or that. So those kinds of questions or analysis we can do among ourselves instead of just writing that. We can have like the community decided on this or that. So having that could be good also. Maybe a suggestion.
So
Yeah.
maybe you're talking about qualitative data, right? Research, right? So in this case,
Yes, like quantitative as well. I think quantitative is the
exactly,
one with numbers. These many
exactly.
people agreed to this and
Quantitative, you mean? Quantitative. So in both cases, we should have a
could
survey
be
or a
mix of both.
questionnaire. Exactly.
Could be
It
mix
can
of
be
both.
both. Right. But we should have a questionnaire in this case, or a set of questions that were prepared maybe, or that we have in, oh my God, in the companion, or that were mentioned by John in the introduction. So in order to have quantitative and qualitative data or data, we should have a set of questions in the form of a questionnaire or a survey, I don't know.
The
To
same
go back
questions
to.
that are in this one, I think.
Exactly,
And John,
yeah.
another idea came to me that the qualitative one could be like a session like this. We ask a question and everybody discusses that question, and the key points can be taken out of the discussion instead of writing it. Because when we say things, another person gets another idea and more ideas come through that way. So we can have kind of a webinar within ourselves. We ask questions and share and things like that.
Would you like to develop this idea, Rabia, and we settle a date and we have this survey or
I can.
focus
I
group
can.
or whatever we can call it?
Well, let's just have a think about that for a minute. I know we've only got a few minutes left, but
Yeah.
again, I'm going to be a bit directive again. I think if we want to gather some information in order to be able to say, look, this isn't just, or this is the extent of the opinion about this. You know, that 24 out of 30 people think that coffee is better than tea in the morning. If we're going to do something like that, right? And I know why people like that. I don't see it as being any more powerful than me saying, yeah, do you know what? I think people generally prefer tea in the morning than coffee. But anyway, that's just me. If we want to do something like that, then I think what we should do is to focus it on the conclusion of the article or on the conclusion of the companion, which I kind of picked up on when you say an internal webinar. In that we say, okay, then, so our working definition of, to what extent do people agree with that? Or the models that we tried, these 6 were quite useful, but the 7th, that we focus in on the purely internal thing that's part of the content for the companion and the article, and we get a view on the consensus around that. Rather than doing something which sounded like might be a bit retrospective, of doing some sort of survey into the mentoring experience or something like that, which I think it's too late to do that, I think. And I think it would be artificial anyway. So,
Okay, I saw that question, can mentoring be scaled? So that's kind of debatable. So maybe we can, come together, then AI, through like mentoring through AI, things like that. So I was just thinking that having a kind of a debate and then having like pros and cons and written over there, something like that.
no, I think that would be, no, I think it's a really nice idea. I think it would be a nice phatic thing to do anyway. But I think if we orientate it towards the content of the article, the content of the companion, that we ask questions specifically that help us to check that what we're saying in the name of the group is actually, valid
Yes.
to some extent. I think that would be quite nice and quite academically attractive, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a 3 month time frame. We've got some kind of survey as well that we would do when we're probably a little bit further on with the writing. That I think would be a great idea to bring the group together again as well. Meeting every 2 weeks or so, but catching up in between if we need to, on any sort of fundamental questions that we've got. And I've got one last suggestion, as if our lives weren't complicated enough with doing 3 things at the same time. I think we should have one final collaborative output from the group, which is the mentoring course for teacher educators. How to be a good mentor, because isn't that what we're trying to get at, isn't it, in all of this? So that when we're writing the sections, especially the reflective questions that go with the sections, when we're writing our case studies and the articles, we're thinking, okay then, so if some of this content were part of a training course for teacher educators who want to develop their skills as a mentor, I'll put that to one. I'll keep that somewhere safe, because I can imagine, you can sort of imagine, unit 1, what is mentoring kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we did quite a bit of
will
work,
open
didn't
a
we?
document. I will also open a document where we can start, dropping our ideas. Sylvia and I designed
Exactly.
some years ago, and we were rereading the course the other day, and the portfolios, the reflections in the portfolios of the course participants. And what we had done the same thing as we did here. We had done a mentoring each other. We had we had paired up the participants, and all the different stages in the mentoring process they had done themselves. They had, and we had forgotten about that. And the comments, the reflections on that had been very, very, very good. So
yeah, we did this. It's as if the theory went one way, and the readings and everything, and the videos that they saw in the course, and then the assignments had to do with the implementation of that. So if we were talking about finding out what your mentee needs and uncovering beliefs and everything, well, they had to design that needs analysis. And then if module 2 had to do with questioning techniques, and then they had to design and justify and reflect on the questions and so on. So it was, the experience was sort of spaced out according to the contents of the modules.
And
we're very much in favor of spaced out experience.
Yeah, it was a built-in practicum in a way.
It was different from the first one we had developed, we had delivered, which was a British Council, the one we all share, where it was just the tools and the techniques and the modeling without the practicum, and we could see the results, the impact this had on the mentoring program later on with the mentees and all they wrote about this. And talking about this with other people, we also remembered that many of those mentors then had opportunities to do other jobs. They were hired in other schools and by publishing houses. So this mentoring course was not just for the mentoring program. It gave them a lot of tools for their own lives, for their own career paths. So, I mean, this can really be very impactful. Yeah. Although it might not, I mean, the mentoring relationship is one-to-one. And so politicians will say, why should I spend all this money on this program if, I mean, I won't see the results, large-scale results. Yet, whoever the spillovers, was that then the word, Silvia, el derrame?
Yeah, the ripple effect in a way.
The ripple effect is so big that, I mean, you cannot imagine where else this can take you. But well, some politicians cannot see this.
That's right. You know, and if we want to broaden it out a bit and say that our undertaking is to try and help people more effectively, you know, that's through building relationships with people, whether we choose to call it mentoring or whatever, then clearly that's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? As a, you know, development of you know, very broadly of human potential, and you know, and knowing more about how to do that. Clearly a very worthwhile thing, but as you say, very difficult to say, yeah, we spent £25,000 on this and the impact is X. Whereas training,
when I was just I was listening to you and I was saying, okay, when you say a mentoring course, are you thinking self-access course? I'm not so sure I can visualize a mentoring course being self-access as other courses.
All I meant really for this stage was that when we're writing, filtering and thinking and doing that we say, okay, then this is quite interesting. How could I use this for educational purposes? That's all I'm saying. That you know, that whether it's a gap fill, or whether it's online, or whether it, you know, or whether it's self, these sorts of things. It's just about making it, just thinking in those terms. That, you know, there's a kind of a natural, if you like, collaborative output of all of what we do, which is about helping other people get better at being mentors, I think, you know. So to keep that in mind as we write things.
How can they get better? And the answer to which is not by hiring us, right? By hiring us and paying us. That's out of the question.
There's a transactional side to this, of course, isn't there? When, you know, when you ask people, why do you join a community of practice? Well, because I want to make, you know, I want to make some money or something like that. I think that's a perfectly valid way of doing things, and that, you know, that you can imagine, can't you, that if you you know, if you develop your expertise, that has a value to it. So, and if other people want to, you know, take benefit from the hard work that you put into developing your value, then yeah, why not? That you can. You can imagine, you know, delivering a mentoring course for teacher educators, for example. Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't really mean any of that. I just meant sort of thinking about keeping that in mind, that, you know, we might want to take some of the content and use it for educational purposes beyond a guide, and something more structured like a course. Okay then. So are we all done then? We've got everything worked out, and we're going to meet again in 2 weeks, and we might change the time, and Sylvia's going to send around a survey to see if there might be a better time for people
Many
speaking.
many
This is
people have
okay.
said that they cannot make it. They couldn't make it
Yeah.
today. Maybe the day. I mean, well, let's have a survey first.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay.
Thursday is a better day.
Which one?
Thursday is better, at least for me.
Okay.
Friday comes
I
with
think-
a lot of work because it's weekend, a lot of things and deadlines, and then it's Jummah for us also. So it's a lot of work. So maybe Thursday would be convenient.
Okay.
Brilliant. Okay then. Well, enjoy your Friday.
Mhm.
Have a good weekend when it comes. Right. Okay.
Bye,
Sorry for the
everyone.
bit
Thank
directed.
you.
Nice
Thank
seeing
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank
All right.
you.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Thank
now.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Me saco esto porque